Yes.
Who are your biggest rivals this year?
Boy. Well, the way the league is aligned, we end up playing a number of the teams twice. So if you automatically look at some of those, although we would like to think Ocean City's a rival, we don't get to play them twice a year anymore, although we did pick them up this year. So some of the traditional year in, year out rivals that we have, definitely Holy Spirit and Atlantic City definitely make that list for a number of reasons.
Who do you see as your team leaders?
That's a good question. We're really young this year. In a lot of ways, we're still kind of looking for leadership. We definitely look to, we have a couple of returning starters in Emily D'Alessio, Shay Scannell, and Megan Stafford. One of the things that's kind of unique about that is Emily's a senior, Shay's a junior, and Megan's a sophomore. So we're looking for leadership in a lot of different ways, not just from people who've been in the program for more years than other people. Having said that, that's something we talk about all the time in practice. We're trying to really communicate what leadership means, not just scoring points, but everything that represents. So. Yes, ma'am.
Do you think your players have high expectations for the season?
I do. That's another thing we try to stress. One of the first things we did, literally the first thing we did after the team was set was we sat everybody down and kind of went through some team goals and things that we want. And that didn't just come from the coaches, that came from talking with some of the players too. So, for example, one of the things that we've talked about a lot is we have an opportunity to host a state playoff game this year. And what we're really hoping for is that both the boys and the girls can host a state playoff game because the way the schedule works, are played on the same days. So that'd be a really cool opportunity for not just the players, but everybody in the school to be able to attend. It'd be a back-to-back. Girls would play, then the boys would play on the same night. That'd be really that's something we're hoping to accomplish. Yeah.
How do you plan on replacing them with Alex point scorer?
It's a good question. Not only was Alex a 1,000-point scorer, she averaged 10 rebounds a game too. So the way we're going about it is you can't just have someone step in and replace what Alex did last year. We're looking for combined effort, everyone contributing little pieces of what Alex did on her own last year. Because Alex was top 5 scorer in program history. You can't just hope to just replace that from one year to the next. So we're asking all our players to just grab a tiny little piece of what she brought game to game last year. Yeah.
Would you consider this to be more of a rebuilding year of sorts?
It's a good question. We hope that we're never in a full-on rebuilding mood. That's one of the things I think is one of our strengths, what I said before about we've got returning starters at different levels, at different years in terms of where they are in school. So in that sense, we hope to never be in a full-on rebuilding, but again, anytime you lose like Alex and some of the other seniors we had last year, there's definitely going to be some growth. I'll say this, I think that at the end of the year, we'll look a lot different than we'll be at the beginning. So, yeah.
What players have shown strong improvements since the off-season?
I think Shay Scannell has probably been the single most improved player over one 12-month time period of anybody I've ever seen in coaching. She's an outstanding athlete, regardless of what she does in basketball, but the way, as a point guard, it's so important that you understand the game, and her level of understanding of how to play is night and day from where it was last year. Not saying that it was bad last year either, just very much improved. Other than that, I think a lot of the other people in the program, this isn't just one girl, but pretty much everybody has really developed and grown in the sense that they understand what the level of expectation is from an effort perspective in terms of what we want every day in practice too. So in that sense, everybody's developed. Matt?
What are your own personal expectations for the season?
One of our, I think it's hard to say personal expectations. I can't have any expectation of a team unless the girls have the same expectation too. I can have whatever expectations I want, but if that's not something that the team's interested in or the team thinks they can accomplish, then that's a meaningless goal. So all of our goals we've kind of sat down and talked about with some of the leaders of the team. We hope to make the Cal tournament this year for the first time. The girls have never made the Cal postseason tournament. In order to do that, you have to finish top 2 in your conference. So that's something we're really focused on. we try to really communicate how important each of our Cal American Conference games are. And the other thing, like I mentioned before, we want to host a first-round state playoff game too. Being able to be at home is just such a huge advantage to the playoffs. Anybody that coaches basketball or any other sport or plays any other sport will tell you that, how important that is. Yeah.
Have you decided on your starting lineup for this year?
We thought we were in a pretty good place with our starting lineup. Then we suffered an injury to Sammy Lopez. Retore her meniscus, and hopefully she'll be back relatively soon. So at this point, I would say we're fairly certain about where we are there, but there's still some things left to shake out in terms of finishing out that fifth starter. But you're asking who that starting lineup will be?
Yes.
Shea Scannell will be our point guard. And like Alessio will be our, one of our other guards. That third guard spot is still somewhat up for grabs right now. I'm not really just ready to say who that is yet. Megan Stafford and Melanie Malcolm at our forwards. Yeah.
Have you developed any new strategies for the team this year in comparison to last year?
That's a good question. We started doing a lot of things differently this year, both from a planning perspective in terms of the way we run practice and also some motivational things. There's a number of different motivational things we did. One of the things we printed up these T-shirts that the girls have to earn through doing certain things in practices or scrimmages or games, and they know that. And it's kind of, we hope, the staff hopes that those shirts become like a badge of honor kind of thing. Once you get one, then everyone understands the expectation of what it takes to get one of those. So that's something we did a little bit different from a motivational standpoint this year. We structured practice a little bit differently. We're trying to keep things moving more, so what we've done is all the talking, all the instruction that goes on in practice, we do that first before anybody even stretches and gets moving, so that way we kind of hope to keep more of an intense pace through practice as we go forward, as opposed to getting moving and stopping, sitting everybody down, talking to them, and then trying to get them moving again. And there's just a whole bunch of different little things like that, but as a staff, we're always trying to do different things. I mean, unless you're winning the tournament champions every year, then you should always be trying different things to try to get better. Yeah.
Do you think that the try scrimmage this Saturday is an indication how the season will go?
I hope not. I certainly hope that wasn't an indication. I think a couple of things about that try scrimmage on Saturday. I think that those were two of the best teams that won't counter all year long. We won't play them in the regular season, but they're as good as anybody will see again all year. At the same time, we try to communicate this to the girls too, even during the scrimmage. We struggled on Saturday, but one of the things about that scrimmage was we didn't go into it with any kind of prep. We just went into it, doing what we do. And some of the things that the other teams were doing definitely took us out of our offense. And those are the kinds of things you hope to adjust for in scouting, which we obviously didn't do for a scrimmage. So in that sense, I think that the scrimmages, they're just so different from a game day atmosphere. We would never go into a game without knowing exactly what type of defense the opposing team is going to run and knowing exactly what we're going to do against it. And I think that kind of took us, a lot of things that those two teams did took us out of our rhythm a little bit, so I don't think that's really an indication. Yeah.
Who would you consider to be more of the underrated or overlooked players on the team?
That's a good question. Underrated or overlooked. Somebody's been making a strong push recently for time is Despina Leonidas, sophomore. Shows outstanding effort on defense. Still has a lot of learning to do on offense, but as a program, one of the things that we stress is if you're going to go out there and you're going to play tough defense every second that you're out there, then you have a chance to play. So that would be something that I would give a lot of credit to in terms of how hard she's worked on defense. Yeah.
How do you think your young team will compete with more experience?
It's a good question. That's where we'll struggle early in the year. More experienced teams, especially some of the guard spots. That's in high school basketball, the guards are so important. But I would say by the end of the year, when we get some of these people who are getting their first real varsity experience, I would think that we will be just as dangerous as